So, back in September of 2025, something truly unprecedented happened in the world of finance. And no, it wasn't a market crash or some kind of old-school bank run. It was quieter. Millions upon millions of bank accounts just sort of vanished from the active system. And this is the story of how it all went down and what it might mean for the future of money for all of us.
The number at the center of this whole thing is just mind-boggling. 86 million. Let that sink in for a second. It's a number so huge, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around. What could it possibly be?
That's what it was. 86 million bank accounts. Deactivated. Just wiped from the active ledger in one single, massive move by the Vietnamese government. So you've got to be asking, how? And maybe, more importantly, why? Okay, so let's break down exactly what happened. In September 2025, the State Bank of Vietnam, the SBV, started deactivating every single account that hadn't followed a brand new sweeping biometric verification rule. Now, this wasn't a bug in the system, oh no. This was a planned, deliberate, nationwide cleanup.
And just to put that 86 million number into perspective for you, Vietnam had roughly 200 million personal bank accounts to start with. After this purge, only 113 million were left. That means an incredible 43% of all accounts in the country were impacted. That's the sheer scale we're talking about here.
So why on earth would a government do this? Well, officially, they didn't really frame it as a punishment. Instead, they called it a data cleansing revolution. A necessary step to modernize and secure the country's financial system, which was digitizing really, really fast.
And listen, this didn't happen overnight. Not at all. This was a methodical plan that had been in the works for years. The first seeds were planted back in 2022 with something called Project 06. Then, by late 2024, the order for biometric updates came down. And all through 2025, the screws just kept tightening. First on your personal transfers, then on corporate accounts, until, bam, full deactivation in September.
And here's the official reason, straight from the horse's mouth. Pham Antoine from the SPV made it crystal clear. This was about fighting crime. Apparently, Vietnam had seen this huge explosion in sophisticated fraud, including these AI-powered money laundering schemes. So for the government, this was all framed as a matter of national security. So you get the why, but how did they technically pull off something this big? Well, the answer lies in this incredibly powerful new piece of digital infrastructure.
The key to the whole operation is the VNaID. It's Vietnam's mandatory national digital ID. And look, this isn't just some app on your phone. It's a central database that links, well, everything. Your fingerprints, your face scan, your health records, your bank accounts. It is the one and only gateway to basically do anything in modern Vietnamese society.
And the rules were super specific. To keep your bank account alive, you had to link it using either your national ID card, which has a chip, or through that VNID app. On top of that, any online transfer over about $379 would now require a fresh biometric scan, right then and there. It basically tied every significant financial move directly to your physical self.
Okay, so policy is one thing. But who really felt the squeeze when 86 million accounts just went dark? The answer is actually a little more complicated than you might think.
The real-world problems could be huge, especially for people living outside the country. I mean, check out this quote from a former foreign contractor on Reddit. He literally had to book a flight back to Vietnam just to update his biometrics to stop his account from getting shut down. There was no other way to do it remotely. Crazy, right?
And that really helps us understand who got hit the hardest here. It wasn't everybody equally. The main groups were foreigners and expats, people who had old accounts they'd forgotten about, and, of course, actual criminals. Yeah, some rural and elderly folks had trouble with the tech, but sources inside the country said there was no big public backlash. Most people just complied. Now, whenever something this big happens, you're going to get different stories about what it all means. And that's where this gets really interesting. 3 totally different narratives popped up to explain what went down in Vietnam.
First up, we've got the perspective from the world of cryptocurrency. And for them, this was basically the ultimate I told you so moment.
The crypto community saw what Vietnam did as proof of their core belief. The money in your bank account, it's a privilege the state gives you, not a right you own. They argue that something like Bitcoin is fundamentally different. It's an asset you hold yourself, and your access is guaranteed by math and code, not by some government's permission or a fingerprint scan. For them, it's the financial exit. All right, the second interpretation sees this whole thing not as just a local policy, but as one piece of a much larger global puzzle.
From this point of view, the move fits perfectly with all this talk about global digital IDs and cashless societies, the kind of stuff you hear about at places like Davos. Critics see Vietnam's VNID not just as a domestic tool, but as a blueprint for total surveillance and control, a kind of test run for similar systems being talked about right now in the West.
And finally, we get to the third and probably most down-to-earth interpretation, the official government line.
This perspective basically says, hey everyone, let's calm down. It argues the reality is a lot less dramatic. This was mostly a long overdue spring cleaning of millions of old, dormant, and straight-up fraudulent ghost accounts. And here's the key part. The money wasn't taken. It was just frozen, waiting for you to show up in person and prove who you are. So, a tough move? Yes, but maybe a necessary one to fight a very real growing threat from cybercrime.
So why does something that happened in Vietnam matter to the rest of us? Because this isn't happening in a bubble. It could very well be a preview of a future that is coming for all of us, and faster than we think.
When you look around the world, you can see this isn't just a one-off thing. Sure, Vietnam's system is on the extreme end, linking everything, but the trend itself is global. You've got India's Aadhaar system, the EU's digital wallet, America's Real ID. They're all moving in the same direction, and they're all forcing the same conversation everywhere.
Which leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? In this digital world, we all want to be safe and we all want things to be easy. But how much control are we actually willing to give up to get that? The story of Vietnam's 86 million missing accounts isn't really just about Vietnam. It's about that fundamental line between a country's security and our own financial freedom. And that line is being redrawn right in front of our eyes.